Hey everybody, it's Ann Beebe. Today is Wednesday, September 4th, 2019. I'm Barb Hammer, and today is my birthday. So I haven't uploaded a video in over a week. I did make a couple of videos over the weekend. I went to I didn't go to this event, but I was at the venue. There was an Earth UFO Fest in Lacey, Washington. I live in the Pacific Northwest. So I went with my husband. He's interested in sort of UFO phenomenon and ETs and that sort of thing. And I kind of go, it's interesting. I'm not really a believer. I just noticed there's a lot of disinformation in that community. So I went along and I was at the venue and it was interesting. I had some interesting experiences. I made a couple of videos, but I didn't upload them. Um, Today it's been 2 weeks since I sprained my ankle. So it still swells up. I'm in my living room. I can use my office now, where I was doing videos. There was a flooding problem in the apartment building, and there were workers in and out. And I think they've gotten the water problem worked, but the place is still a mess. Um, but yeah, we don't have a sink in the bathroom, so we have to use the kitchen sink. Um, so things are kind of a mess. Still pretty disorganized from that. Uh, so anyway, my ankle swells up a lot, so I try to keep my feet up. So like sitting, I'm right now. I've got my foot up, and I'm kind of leaning back. Um, I often just hang out on the bed in the bedroom, and to keep my foot up. And it's healing, but it's a slow process. I'm getting there. Anyway, I had a nice, relaxing birthday, and I hit a milestone. So I am 60 today. I don't feel 60. I don't feel 60 apart from the sprained ankle, which makes me look kind of like a senior citizen hobbling around, but yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, I don't feel 60. It's just a number. Anyway, um, I'm watching what's going on in Hong Kong very closely, and I've got this video up because this is a video I found some time ago. It's a music video called Sea of Black, and it was made for the current Hong Kong protests. So I don't know if you can make it out on the screen. So it says Hong Kong Sea of Black. That's the music video. That's the title because the rioters, I will call them, and sometimes they call them terrorists, um, they wear black, and they started to switch to black. I noticed as the when the July 1st anniversary of the return of Hong Kong to China happened, and it was kind of a color of mourning, I guess. So they've stuck with that color black, yeah, and it attracts a lot of people. Like it's Antifa color. A lot of anarchists like that color, so they attract a lot of people like that. Even though the whole movement is very right wing. Um, so it's a CIA operation, and through the National Endowment for Democracy and all these the CIA complex is what I've seen the term, and I like that term, the CIA complex. So it says Hong Kong Sea of Black protest against extradition June 19th, 2019. So this was probably, I think there was a nighttime vigil or something. People had candles or something. They make it all look very peaceful, but the riots have been very, very violent. And the police have had their hands full trying to control the crowds. And the cops are getting accused of brutality. But, it's not an easy situation. So this music video was actually um, made by a expat Vietnamese group that lives in the U.S. I believe. I'm pretty sure, and it's like from there's a TV network, a Vietnamese TV network for Vietnamese living outside of the country. And what's interesting that I've learned recently that uh, a number of the Hong Kong um, ringleaders of the riots, two of them anyway, Joshua Wong and Denise Ho, who's Canadian. Um, their families came from Vietnam. Um, and I'm not sure when they came to Vietnam, maybe in the 80s, I don't know. So they might have been boat people or something. So I'm uh Carl Jha. I don't know, that's how I'm going to pronounce his name. He's a very prominent uh figure on Twitter, and everybody follows him. He's supposed to be a China expert, although he plays it safe very politically. He won't talk about politics. He's accusing people of being racist by saying that, pointing out that Joshua Wong and Denise Ho come from Vietnamese families. So they're Vietnamese Chinese. And but it's not racist. There's some very political questions to ask about these people and their families' backgrounds. Did they work with the US forces during the Vietnam War? Did they were they closely tied to the South Vietnamese regime? That's what I'm wondering. I don't know. So Joshua Wong's name is spelled normally in English Wong, and but there's a Vietnamese spelling. I think it's Vuong, and I've seen Huang. There are different ways of spelling Wong. And then so the Vietnamese spelling would be like Vuong, I guess, Wong. And then Denise Ho, her name is spelled sometimes. It would be spelled, I think Ha was the original Vietnamese spelling, so Ha, Denise Ha. So anyway, um, so today, yeah. So anyway, it's interesting that they made this music video was made by an expat Vietnamese group, and so the I'm not gonna play the music because I don't know if I can get a copyright strike. It is copyrighted. Um, yeah. So the lyrics are actually. So I don't know if you can tell. So it says "Land of You." So the lyrics, so they're singing in English. They sing in English, and it's accented English. So they have you'll hear Vietnamese accents, and but then the subtitles are, well, they have captioning in English. They're singing in English, but they have captioning in Vietnamese, and I don't know, that's kind of interesting. And when I first saw this video, I saw this video some weeks ago. My first thought was, oh, I wonder if they're planning a regime change operation against Vietnam next. And I think probably, yeah, Vietnamese is a target for sure, because even though they use Vietnam now for a lot of cheap labor to make textiles, clothing and other things, maybe. Business interests in the West, they're never satisfied. They want to completely neoliberalize countries. And so, I don't know. I think Vietnam is definitely on the target. So today, well, there's a lot of stuff going on in Vietnam. The violence is getting worse, and everything seems fake. There've been false flag attacks, fake medics, fake press, fake journalists, um, fake cops. Everything's fake. So it's a big psyop. Everything's fake. Fake protests, yeah. So they're planning a big shutdown at the airport on Saturday again, and they've been rioting at the transit stations, trashing them. And the transit system in Hong Kong is amazing because it seems like they repair everything overnight. That's what I've noticed. And what else? I don't know. There's so much stuff going on. Anyway, It's a mess. I call it a dumpster fire. And sometimes, oh, I was calling it because it's like a school play, how they're, changing clothes. So the rioters will change clothes, look like medics, or they change clothes so they look like, ordinary citizens and they're not rioters, they're full of cops. I don't know. It's all fake. Anyway, so yeah, Carrie Lamb has agreed to sort of meet the demands, I guess. There were five demands, and she has officially withdrawn that extradition bill, and that's in spite of the fact that there were Western reports that Beijing would not allow her to do that, but Beijing allows, is been living up to its agreement and allowing the Hong Kong government autonomy. Um, so she's agreed to some of the demands, and I don't know, but it doesn't really matter. These demands are just, take pulled out of the hat, and they're never satisfied with anything the Hong Kong government does. So anyway, there was an image of a foreigner or European looking man. Let's see. Please come up. Yeah. Okay. Um Wait a minute. There's lots of images of this guy. Okay. Here we go. So these are some screenshots. So this is one of the accounts that I follow. And so this is the man that people have been watching these videos where he's very belligerent and he's arguing with police and he keeps saying things like, um, it's two countries. No, wait a minute. He'll say, Hong Kong is not China and one country, two systems. And he's just very angry about Beijing, the Chinese government. And, but, it's kind of funny the videos that they post because I think he's had a lot to drink, so he's very, very physical and belligerent. I think it started out he went on a long rant. He was riding a transit train, and the people were just kind of quiet and listening to him or ignoring him. And he was just on this loud rant. And I think when he saw cops at one of the transit stations and he got very belligerent and he was getting physical with them. So they, decided to, they were going to put a stop to that. He was being very drunk in public and very belligerent, I guess. I don't know. So this is the man, and he has been identified. At first, I was told that he worked with the Australian Security Intelligence Organization. So that was the information I was being told at first. And other people were saying, oh, he's a Swedish journalist or someone who has a fake, one of those fake press IDs. And and it might have been him. It's just that if it was him, he's changed a lot over the year. He was a lot thinner. Could have been him. I don't know. So it was a Swedish name like Martin Svensson. I don't know. There's another. I couldn't find There's a clear image of that badge. I've got it somewhere. I've got so many images and screenshots. So it's kind of funny. So here he is arguing with the cops, and somebody spotted They said, there was a urine stain on his shorts. He was wearing shorts, and so yeah, I tweeted about him, and I didn't get his name exactly right because I was going by a Reddit page. Someone had a link to a Reddit page with some information about him. Some of it I'm not sure about. So it said foreigner arrested in Hong Kong had fake press ID as Swedish journalist, real ID as American English teacher, and Hong Kong Free Press fake news contributor. So they had some links here, and so he definitely works for Hong Kong Free Press, which is a supposedly crowd-funded alternative media outlet, but it's just kind of rehash of Western propaganda, mainstream propaganda, really. Um, They claimed he is a teacher at the Canaan Creative Education in Hong Kong, and I looked that up, but I don't have any way. I don't know. I haven't found a way of verifying whether or not he is an English teacher, but I wouldn't be surprised because a lot of these guys. Okay, I'm gonna say he is an asset for the regime change operation in Hong Kong. Yeah, pretty sure of that. And people think they kind of poo poo this sort of information. People who work as journalists or teachers or um, um, for NGOs. Yeah. Um, so anyway, he's what did I find here? Okay, yeah. So I did look up this school. So there's another guy, Hong Kong. He goes by the name Hong Kong Hermit on Twitter, and he's supposedly a blogger. He's from the UK, but he's been seen giving directions at protests. And a lot of these figures, um, like they're from the UK or the US or Australia or Canada, wherever, and they teach English, and it's often to pretty young kids. And Hong Kong Hermit, I saw a site where he was referred to as Mr. Adrian, and he was teaching. That was him though, because I recognized there was a photo of him, and it was his smirk, and so he was teaching very young. They're teaching very young kids, so these kids are getting brainwashed at a very young age. So this is a huge this company, Keenan Creative Education, I'm assuming it's private. It's like a private school, I guess, or private. So yeah, they provide native English teachers and Putonghua. That's Putonghua is the Mandarin that's spoken in mainland China, and they call it Putonghua means common language. So it has a different Mandarin. They call it something different on the mainland from what they call it in Taiwan. In Taiwan, they call it the national language. I forget the Chinese for it. Um, so this is a huge company. You know, they're providing a lot of services um, to teaching kids, but the kids are getting really brainwashed by these English teachers about democracy, freedom, and human rights. You know, those are the code words for brainwashing and indoctrination. Um, so yeah. Oh, so his name is actually yeah. So here's one of the videos where the cops wrestle with him. And oh yeah, this is one image that's been around. I've seen this image before here. So I think that probably is him. He looks a little bit thinner here, but I think that's him. He's wearing a cap, but that's him. So I think he might be, yeah, there, that's the picture there. And here are the kids in black with a mask. So he's one of the guys. So he's a journalist and he's a teacher, but he is also a handler. You know, he gives instructions to these rioters, and his name is actually. Uh, I have tweeted out about him, but I found a little bit more information from another Twitter account. So his full name is Benton Randall Olmsted, but he just goes by Ben Olmsted. And did find, yeah, so there was a link to the Hong Kong Free Press, and so he has been a contributor there. And yeah, and what's interesting, so yeah, I think he likes to drink because his picture here, his profile picture on the Hong Kong Free Press website, as him holding a can that says beer. So he says Ben Olmsted is a tree hugging, bleeding heart liberal. Hmm. Californian who has chosen Hong Kong as his adopted home since 1995. And one of his rants, he does indeed say that he has lived in Hong Kong for 24 years. So yeah, he's been in Hong Kong a long time. I would say he's been in Hong Kong too long. Yes. So this is the only article that I found that he's contributed to the Hong Kong Free Press. So it's about gay marriage in Hong Kong, and that's the ultimate freedom. And I have to tell you that the I have learned that the issue of LGBTQ rights is known as pinkwashing. So it's a sort of glossing over um, corporate corruption, kind of distracting people from corporate corruption and neoliberal policies by directing people's attention to gay rights and that sort of thing. So they use that community to kind of say, oh, well, that's freedom because we have gay marriage and same sex marriage. But no, that's not real freedom. And anyway, so uh, I also have learned the Hong Kong Free Press has close ties to Human Rights Watch. And Human Rights Watch, yeah, so it says Human Rights Watch is a nonprofit, non governmental human rights organization made up of roughly 400 staff members around the globe. Established in 1978, and it used to be called Helsinki Watch when during the Cold War. So Helsinki in Finland, it was keeping an eye on the Soviet Union. And Human Rights Watch is known for its accurate fact finding, impartial reporting, effective use of media, and targeted advocacy, often in partnership with local human rights groups. Human Rights Watch meets with governments, the United Nations, regional groups like the African Union and the European Union, financial institutions, and corporations to press for changes in policy and practice that promote human rights and justice around the world. Yeah, so Human Rights Watch. Yeah. So this is a Wikipedia page, and so it's one of these NGOs, and I've heard of them, and yeah, there's something. Oh, yeah, the funding is interesting. So Human Rights Watch. Going down, going down. Yeah, so they work with Amnesty International, and Amnesty International is another NGO that I've recognized as it's getting well known as a group that advocates for regime change in countries that the West doesn't like. Yeah. So financing, here we go. So Human Rights Watch, this is interesting. Financier and philanthropist George Soros of the Open Society Foundation announced in 2010 his intention to grant $100 million to Human Rights Watch over a period of 10 years to help it expand its efforts internationally. Yes. And I know, in Hong Kong, one of the NGOs involved in the Color Revolution there, the regime change operation, is indeed George Soros's Open Society Foundations. So anyway, Ben Olmsted. So this Tim Anderson, he's a good person to follow. I don't always agree with him on everything, but this is good information that he has. And I think he might have. I was tweeting that I was trying to, when I was listening to Ben Olmsted's rant, when he was arguing with police, I said, I was trying to figure out what his accent. So I decided, the mistake is to say, oh, it's an American accent, but I know, a Canadian accent will sound like an American accent. So I will say North American because I live in Canada. So anyway, I've learned that. So he said North American provocateur. Um, So, the North American provocateur arrested after his anti China rant on the Hong Kong subway and confrontation with police is Ben Olmsted. Notice the US funded organization link. So he's got this meme where it says, so U.S. citizen Ben Olmsted, he's from California, and someone found, so he went to a very kind of exclusive private school, it seems, in California. Um, anyway, so U.S. citizen Ben Olmsted in Hong Kong since 1995 campaigns against China and writes for the Hong Kong Free Press, linked to two U.S. Congress funded NED, National Endowment for Democracy. That's the CIA front. So linked to two groups, Hong Kong Human Rights Monitor. Oh, okay. And Reporters Without Borders. Okay. Okay, so he's named two other NGOs that the Hong Kong Free Press is connected to. And the Hong Kong Free Press, it has a lot of writers. There's an academic that I identified named Trey Menifee. I will talk about him too. Um, so it's interesting, the writers for Hong Kong Free Press. Anyway, there's one NED, the big NEDs, big NGOs is NED, the National Endowment for Democracy, a CIA front, which I've talked about in other videos. It's tied to the Hong Kong Free Press is tied to the Hong Kong Human Rights Monitor and Reporters Without Borders. So yeah, he says it's linked to the fake NGO Human Rights Watch, engaged in multiple regime change campaigns around the world. That's right. Okay, so he's got the symbols for these NGOs, and there's Ben's picture, and there's one of the pictures of him arguing with police. So U.S. Congress, NED, through NED, funded Reporters Without Borders, says the Hong Kong Free Press is part of an organized resistance to Beijing's meddling and a model for the region. That's from the Hong Kong Free Press annual report. Okay, so that's how they describe their operation. So yeah. So it's a propaganda outlet. I would say it's like the CIA funds a lot of propaganda outlets like Radio Free Asia. So yeah, so the Hong Kong Free Press, I would just call it a CIA rag, really. Yeah, they present themselves as though they're alternative media, funded, and they ask for donations, but that's not the case at all. So yeah, there's a lot. I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know. There's so much to talk about as far as Hong Kong. So anyway, this is a guy who works in propaganda, and he probably teaches kids, brainwashes kids, and he's probably involved in the riots, giving instructions. Because a lot of these guys, they seem to do a lot of different things. They have a lot of different, I don't know, professions. I don't know. They do a lot of jobs. And anyway, another thing I wanted to mention is Scott Creighton, my friend Scott, on his Church Dog 42 channel, he did another video about Hong Kong. So I would encourage you to watch that. So he talked about this YouTuber Luke Rudkowski from We Are Change, and he's just become a propagandist, really. So he pretends to be alternative media and anti-war, but he's not really. And he loves these regime change operations. He's done the same thing in Venezuela. So Scott's video is Luke Rudkowski's bullshit reporting from Hong Kong. So I would encourage you to watch that. It's very good. So, as far as people like Ben Olmsted, Hong Kong hermit, Mr. Adrian, Trey Menifee, and others. Oh yeah, and I already named let's see what is his name, Brian Patrick Kern. So I named one of these operatives who's teaching, brainwashing kids and training them, giving them instructions during the riots. So what's going on in Hong Kong is called a color revolution. And I'm going to do in another video, I'm going to talk about Gene Sharp. Gene Sharp is like the granddaddy. He's an academic, American academic. He passed away last year. He's the granddaddy of the color revolution. He came up with this supposedly nonviolent protest that they use as their model. And it's very elaborate, and they call it peaceful. It's not really peaceful. It's provocative. They try to provoke violence. What they do, they try to provoke violence from the police, and then just record that, and then that's the image that gets splashed around all over the place. Anyway, so Gene Sharp, very interesting. So he wrote a book. I don't know. I think he might have written more than one book, but he wrote a book, Dictatorship to Democracy. So he's a CIA asset, and the CIA has used his research into how to overthrow a government, and his research is used at that Oslo Freedom Forum. That's how they train these rioters. They recruit them. They brainwash them at a young age, it seems, especially in Hong Kong. So they just take kids, really young kids, and even Joshua Wong, he was only 14, I think.